In a dramatic and bold public statement, Syrian rebel leader Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, the head of the militant group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, has taken a hard stance against Israel, accusing the country of crossing significant red lines with its latest series of airstrikes in Syria. Al-Jolani's remarks come at a time of mounting regional tension, signaling the potential for a serious escalation in the ongoing Syrian conflict. This marks al-Jolani's first major public address regarding Israel's involvement in Syria, and it is a notable shift in the way he is framing the dynamics of the war. For years, his group has primarily focused its efforts on toppling Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and fighting off rival jihadist groups, but his latest comments suggest that Israel may soon become a more prominent target of HTS's rhetoric and actions. Al-Jolani, who heads one of the largest rebel factions in Syria, did not mince words when addressing Israel's military presence in Syria, which he claims has significantly worsened the situation in the region. The immediate trigger for al-Jolani's statements appears to be the recent Israeli airstrikes that have targeted key military infrastructure within Syria, specifically Iranian and Hezbollah assets. These airstrikes have been a long-standing element of Israel's strategy in Syria, which aims to limit Iranian influence near its borders. Israel has repeatedly stated that it will continue to strike Iranian positions in Syria, which it sees as a direct threat to its national security. However, these airstrikes have also hit locations that are critical to the Syrian regime's war effort, leading to significant damage and casualties among Syrian forces, including those aligned with al-Assad. In his speech, al-Jolani condemned Israel's actions as not just an attack on Syrian sovereignty but as a dangerous provocation that threatens to escalate the already volatile situation in Syria. The rebel leader emphasized that Israel's interference in Syria has complicated the fight against the Assad regime, with the added dimension of foreign occupation by Israeli forces. Al-Jolani's comments reflect a growing sentiment among opposition groups in Syria, who see Israel's involvement as an infringement on their right to determine their own future free from foreign intervention. Al-Jolani's rhetoric echoes a broader trend in the Middle East, where Israel's continued military operations in Syria have raised alarm bells. While Israel justifies its actions as necessary for national defense, critics argue that they only serve to perpetuate instability in the region. The strike on military infrastructure tied to Iranian and Hezbollah forces was framed by Israel as an act of self-defense, yet for many Syrians, it represents yet another foreign military presence in their country's already war-torn landscape. The timing of al-Jolani's statement is significant, as it comes just after a period of heightened Israeli airstrikes, with multiple bombing campaigns aimed at reducing the military footprint of Iranian-backed forces in Syria. These airstrikes have hit sensitive military installations, including weapons depots and missile storage facilities, some of which are situated in key urban areas. For rebel groups like HTS, who are already stretched thin by the ongoing war with Assad's forces and the various foreign powers backing them, Israeli operations add another layer of complexity. Al-Jolani's harsh words signal that his group, along with other factions, may view Israel's continued strikes as a call to arms against yet another external enemy. Al-Jolani's fiery accusations also reflect a shift in his group's strategic priorities. HTS has long focused on defeating the Assad regime, which it sees as a brutal and oppressive government, but with Israel now a more visible and active force in Syria, al-Jolani may be signaling that the Syrian opposition is beginning to view Israel as an enemy as well. His mention of Israel crossing red lines indicates that he sees Israel's military actions as not only a violation of Syrian sovereignty but also as an existential threat to the region's future political landscape. While al-Jolani did not outline specific actions that HTS would take in response to Israel's strikes, his warning hints at the possibility of a broader and more direct confrontation with Israeli forces. He alluded to the potential for a major escalation, which could involve HTS and other Syrian rebel factions intensifying their efforts against both Israeli and Assad forces. In particular, HTS could resort to more aggressive tactics in response to Israel's strikes, including targeting Israeli military interests or coordinating with other militant groups across the region. Furthermore, al-Jolani's comments could rally other rebel factions that share his animosity towards foreign intervention, possibly uniting them under a common banner of resistance to both the Assad regime and Israeli presence in Syria. Al-Jolani's address also highlights a deepening frustration within Syria's opposition ranks. For many in the rebel factions, the conflict has become increasingly internationalized, with foreign powers, whether Iranian, Russian, or Israeli, playing significant roles in shaping the outcome of the war. For years, Syrian rebels have struggled to gain significant ground against the well-equipped and well-funded Assad regime, which is backed by Russia and Iran. The intervention of Israel, although primarily focused on Iranian assets, has added another external player into the mix, further complicating the dynamics of the war. The broader implications of al-Jolani's speech are still unfolding, but it is clear that Israel's continued military actions in Syria are likely to provoke further tensions in the region. While Israel has stated that it will continue to operate in Syria as long as the Iranian threat remains, its actions risk inflaming regional conflict. Al-Jolani's speech serves as a stark reminder that the Syrian conflict is far from over, and foreign powers, Israel included, are likely to face a growing resistance from local groups who view them as occupying forces. If HTS and other rebel groups follow through on al-Jolani's call for escalation, Israel could find itself involved in an even more complex and dangerous confrontation in Syria. As the conflict continues to evolve, the dynamics of regional power struggles will play a critical role in shaping the future of Syria and the wider Middle East. The risk of further escalation, with Israel at the center of this growing tension, could lead to unpredictable consequences, both within Syria and beyond its borders. Whether al-Jolani's fiery rhetoric translates into concrete military action remains to be seen, but the warning is clear: the situation in Syria is on the edge of becoming even more complex and volatile.